They turned my farm into a battlefield, not a metaphorical one either. I'm talking about actual trenches in the mud, 50 feet of cedar fence turned to kindling tire ruts deep enough to swallow a boot, all because somebody wanted a better view of the pastoral landscape. If you're already shaking your head, you're in good company. That was the moment I realized I'd been cast in the starring role of the HOA's private little war. And let me tell you, I wasn't about to play the fool. It started on a Thursday, 4 days away for a private surveying job, just a little side gig to keep my brain sharp even after retiring from the county. I pull up the driveway, sun hanging low, and the first thing that hits me is my gate standing wide open. 16 years in land work, old habits die hard. I never ever leave that gate open. The air smelled off too. Not bad, just wrong. That sixth sense that comes from too many years of dealing with property lines, neighbors, and the occasional trespasser. I stepped out and saw it, my fence cut clean at the posts, cedar boards scattered like bones across the grass. Power tools had to be. Whoever did it knew what they were doing, right down to the surgical precision. Mud was chewed up with tire tracks, and as I got closer, I caught a whiff of the stain I'd rolled on just last spring, still fresh in the splinters. There was a scrap of paper pinned to the last upright post, bright orange thumbtack official as a parking ticket. I ripped it down, read the letterhead, Crestwood Hills Homeowners Association. The letter was pure HOA, bureaucratic font, legal-sounding nonsense. The fence at the eastern boundary has been removed pursuant to community aesthetic standards, obstruction impeding visual access for Crestwood Hills residents. Thank you for your cooperation, it said. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold. They'd come onto my land, destroyed my property, and left me a thank you note for the privilege. That's when I heard my cows, agitated lowing in a way I hadn't heard since the last bad storm. I ran to the east pasture counting heads 11. There should have been 12. Bessie, my oldest Hereford, the one I bottle fed, was gone. The gap in the fence was wide enough for a truck to roll through, never mind a 900-pound cow. I called animal control, gave them her tag, then just stood there for a minute staring at the wreckage of what was supposed to be my safe place. You'd think I'd be used to boundary drama. I spent 15 years untangling HOA messes for the county neighbors, suing over a row of shrubs, grass an inch too tall, a fence a foot too far. That's why when I bought my 12 acres, I checked everything, plat maps, surveys, the whole 9 yards. I was 140 feet outside the Crestwood Hills HOA boundary fair and square, with every document to prove it. I was supposed to be untouchable. Turns out, supposed to be doesn't mean much when somebody else wants what you have. I flipped that notice over, no seal, no county signature, just a phone number and the name, Diane Holloway, HOA president. My blood was boiling, so I called. She picked up on the second ring, syrupy voice like a telemarketer on commission. We sent 3 notices, she said, and you failed to respond, so the board authorized corrective action. Except I never got a single notice, no letters, no knocks, nothing. She didn't miss a beat. Our records indicate otherwise. Perhaps you should check with your mail carrier. Then she hung up. I stood in my kitchen as the sun went down, staring at that stupid letter. They'd destroyed my fence, cooked up a story about notices, and thought I'd just grumble and rebuild. They had no idea who they were messing with. I still kept every property document, every survey, every receipt from my county days organized in my shed. That night I pulled it all out, tracing the lines on my plat map, making sure again that my boundaries were solid. They had trespassed. They had broken the law, and I wasn't about to let that slide. I took photos, every splinter, every tire track, every inch of mud. Evidence wins cases. The next morning I drove to their community office, looked more like a shrine to HOA self-congratulation than anything else. Trophies for community excellence certificates. A young guy at the front desk with all the charisma of a DMV clerk. I asked for Diane. They sent me down a hallway, second door on the left. She stood when I walked in. Silver hair, navy blazer smile so practiced it looked painted on. "Mr. Merritt, please sit down." I kept it civil. "I'm here about my fence, the one your group destroyed while I was out of town." She never blinked. Destroyed is a strong word. We performed a corrective action in accordance with community standards. I cut her off. "Mrs. Holloway, my land isn't part of Crestwood Hills. Your rules don't apply here." She leaned back, that condescending tilt. "Community isn't defined by invisible lines. Your property affects our residents' quality of life." When I pointed out her homeowners bought next to a working farm, she just tapped her nails and smiled. "Views change. Property values depend on aesthetics. Your fence was an eyesore." Hence. She tried to slide a voluntary cooperation agreement across the desk sign here, and we'll pay for a new fence, but you agree to our rules, our oversight, our say over everything from livestock to landscaping. I slid it right back. "I'm not signing." Her face went cold. "You will regret that decision." But as I got up to leave, I saw a map on her wall. Crestwood Hills Master Plan. Phase 1, Phase 2 in blue, a third area in yellow, right over my property marked pending acquisition. It all clicked. The fence, the pressure, the agreement, they wanted my land, plain and simple. I snapped a photo of the map on my phone as I left, barely said a word. That night, a friend forwarded me an email that had gone out to the entire HOA. Our outreach to Mr. Merritt was unsuccessful. His unsightly fence diminishes property values. His unwillingness to engage suggests he has little regard for neighborly responsibility. Underneath was a photo of my fence filtered to look gray, dead like a haunted house prop. Diane wasn't just a bully, she was running a campaign. I filed a records request with the county. If they wanted to expand, there'd be paperwork. A week later, while I was fixing the fence, I heard machines, diesel engines, hydraulic rattle. I walked over and found a crew with an excavator digging on my side of the line 20 feet inside my property. "Boundary markers per authorization from Crestwood Hills HOA," the supervisor said, shoving another fake letter in my face. I called the sheriff. The deputy showed up. Young guy tried to play neutral. "This looks like a civil dispute. You'll need a lawyer." The workers finished up, packed their things, and the supervisor tossed a line over his shoulder. "Mrs. Holloway said you wouldn't do anything about it. Farmers are all the same. Bark a lot. Never bite." He was wrong. That night, I called Grace, an old surveying buddy at the county assessor's office. She found the smoking gun. Crestwood Hills had filed a rezoning application through Holloway Development Partners, Diane's own company. My land was listed as a target parcel. Diane was using her position for personal gain. That's not just unethical, it's illegal. I reached out to the best property attorney I knew, Mitchell Drake, the kind of guy whose office smells like old books and quiet confidence. He took one look at my pile of documents and said, "You have a case. Trespass, property damage, fraudulent use of HOA authority. And if we can tie Diane's business interests to these actions, we're looking at fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Only thing missing, the internal HOA meeting minutes." Then a twist. Ruth Brennan, a board member, showed up at my door. 8 years on the inside, finally done keeping silent. She handed over a folder, minutes from the emergency session where the fence removal was passed. No notice, no disclosure of Diane's interest, barely a page long. She also had an email from Diane to the contractor. "If Merritt doesn't agree to sell, we make his life unlivable until he changes his mind. Handle it quietly." No paper trail, she said, but there it was. We filed suit, trespass, property damage, fraud, breach of duty. Served Diane and the HOA right before their annual meeting. The day of the whole community turned out 200 residents, all smiles and chit-chat, until Diane got to her president's report and the neighboring property owner issue. I stood up in the back. "My name is Ethan Merritt. I own the farm next door, and I have questions about your resolution." She tried to shut me down, but I had documents, proof of her conflict of interest, proof of the emergency vote, proof of her personal profit. The crowd went from polite to riotous in about 2 minutes. People started shouting about their own run-ins with Diane about bogus violations and fines. Ruth stood up and backed my story. She moved for a vote of no confidence on the spot. The board secretary counted hands. Diane was out, just like that presidency gone. Court was the next stop. Judge Wells didn't take long to see through Diane's story. With every piece of evidence, photos, emails, survey, maps, the case unraveled. Ruth testified. Diane tried to keep it together, but when Drake asked her if she disclosed her business interests, she cracked. He doesn't matter. He's just a farmer. His ridiculous little farm is blocking the view. Judge Wells didn't miss a beat. She hammered the gavel and awarded $33,000 in damages, a permanent injunction, and called Diane's conduct willful and malicious. HOA's authority over me, gone. Diane's reputation, ruined. Her development project suspended pending ethics review. The kicker. Her own neighbors apologized, letters, phone calls, even a pie delivered by the same guy who'd once complained about my fence. You want a lesson? Here's what I learned. It's easy to think you're untouchable when you have a title, a plan, or a crowd behind you. But power has boundaries, just like land. And if you cross them sooner or later, you answer for it. Justice isn't about getting even, it's about setting things right brick by brick, post by post, fence by fence. So now every morning I look out at my new cedar fence paid for with settlement money rebuilt stronger than before. Bessie's back where she belongs. The grass is green. The sign on my gate says private property, not subject to HOA. Respect the boundary. I don't need to shout. The message is clear. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't anger or revenge. It's patience, evidence, and refusing to be intimidated. Funny thing, Diane thought I was just a farmer. Maybe she's finally realized farmers know a thing or two about standing their ground. So, what do you think? Where do you draw the line between authority and overreach? When does community protection cross into personal vendetta? Have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Drop your story or your thoughts below, because sometimes the real strength comes from sharing what we've survived and reminding each other that justice, no matter how slow, can still be served.